Inside the Magic Show number 487 for August 3rd, 2014. It is Sunday, August 3rd, 2014. This is show 487 of Inside the Magic. As always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti, with a whole lot more fun from San Diego Comic-Con, as well as some movie excitement and a bunch more. Before we get to all of it, I invite you to visit our website at InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts and videos, photos, news articles, and plenty more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, or anything that you want to send in, you can email me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. If you still haven't decided where to vacation this summer or just in the near future, there's always plenty of time to book a Disney vacation. Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise, all available by calling Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387, or you can visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote. And when you do that, be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive a free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And thanks very much to all contributors to this show. One-time donations, recurring donations, clicking through any of the Amazon links or any other affiliates over on the website when you make your purchases. It all supports this show, and I thank you for all of it. And now, let's get started with a trip. Land now, where it recently was Disneyland's 59th birthday. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. One little detail that I did not mention then was an addition to the Tiki Juice Bar, of course, just outside the Tiki Room, and the Dole Whip location. And there you can now get a souvenir bowl with your Dole Whip. Not just an ordinary little paper cup, but an actual nice bowl that you can take with you and reuse and, fill it with whatever you want at home. So I'm actually going to be heading out to Disneyland just a couple of days from now. I will definitely have to pick one of those up for myself. Now, online, there's a new original series of shorts starring the Muppets on DisneyMoviesAnywhere.com. It's called Drive On with the Muppets, and it's in promotion of the upcoming home release of Muppets Most Wanted. Disney describes the new online series as Peppy the King Prawn takes on the responsibility of mentoring Walter on the business of Hollywood, still considered the new guy with the Muppets. Walter is given low-level jobs working alongside his fellow Muppets at their office. In the famed Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, he quickly learns there's a lot more to making movies than he thought. 2 new episodes of Drive On with the Muppets are going to come out online on Disney Movies anywhere every Friday. Also in the world of movies, more news about Disney's upcoming live-action/animation hybrid version of The Jungle Book that they are working on. Bill Murray has been announced to join that voice cast as the voice of Baloo. Also recently announced is Christopher Walken, taking on the role of King Louie. Giancarlo Esposito is voicing Aquila, the leader of the Wolf Pack. Also announced for the film are Ben Kingsley as Bagheera, Lupita Nyong'o as Raksha, Idris Elba as Shere Khan, and Scarlett Johansson as Kaa. Of course, there will be a unknown young actor portraying Mowgli in the live-action portion of it, and everything else will be animated. It's being directed by Jon Favreau, and it will be in theaters October 9th of next year, 2015. Coming home to Blu-ray, this was just announced, Maleficent, the recent Angelina Jolie movie, will be hitting home a few months from now. It's actually taken quite a while to go from theaters to home release, November 4th. Normally it's about 60 days out from the theaters that Disney's movies have been hitting Blu-ray, so I don't know why this one is taking longer. Maybe they're trying to get more and more and more out of it at the box office before it comes home. Don't know, but November 4th is the street date for that. And coming to television, PBS and American Experience have announced a 4-hour, 2-night film called Walt Disney will premiere in fall of 2015, featuring interviews with animators and artists who worked on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, as well as Imagineers who helped design and build Disneyland. So that's still a ways away, fall 2015, but something to look forward to on TV. Now let's move to the world of video games. This is TV-related. Gravity Falls, very popular Disney Channel series, is coming to Disney Infinity 2.0 in the form of power discs. There's going to be the Gravity Falls Forest, the Gravity Falls Sky, and Mabel's Kittens for Fists, which is something that I assume anybody who has seen this show will know what it is. It will include adorable... it will be an adorable, cuddly weapon. That is it. I guess there's no figures, just power discs for Gravity Falls, but fans of that show should enjoy that when Disney Infinity 2.0 comes out in next month, September 23rd. Now, in the world of comics, Figment, the comic based on Journey into Imagination characters, is doing very, very well. It's moving right along. 2 issues have come out already. There's 3 more to come. The final cover for Figment number 5, the artwork for that was recently released online, but number 2 is doing so well that it has actually been sent to a 3rd printing, which is a bit unusual for a second issue of something to do that well. It's a very good thing for Disney and Marvel and everybody who's a fan of Figment for sure. I'm looking forward to seeing how that story comes together in the 5-issue run. And more on comics. The world of Star Wars and Marvel are joining together once again in 2015 with a new lineup of 3 comic book titles, uniting the two. Beginning in January 2015, there will be Star Wars, followed by another comic, Darth Vader, and another comic, Princess Leia, later in the year. And since I recorded the previous podcast just a couple of days ago, after being tremendously late trying to catch up on all things San Diego Comic-Con, that is actually it for the news this week, though I definitely want to make another mention of the Radley Haunted House here. I really appreciate everybody who has supported this effort so far. It's something that I'm working tremendously hard on putting together, along with Cody Meacham, who's really the brains and the creative mind behind all of this down in St. Petersburg, this new haunted attraction that we are working on. The Kickstarter is still up for another couple of weeks, as well as we're going to be really showing you a lot of fun updates. Construction is well underway. We've got a lot of great things to show you very soon. RadleyHaunt.com is our website where you can check it out, but more importantly, once you go there, click through to the Kickstarter, and I really do appreciate any contributions that you can add to that. We're still a couple of $1,000s away from our goal. We've already raised a little over a couple of thousand, so we're more than halfway, but it has definitely slowed down since the initial launch. I will be sharing more details very, very soon in the next couple of days about some rewards, some particularly exciting rewards that'll be available for those of you who want to contribute. But even if you don't want anything and you just kind of want to help out and you want to see, pictures and video and make this happen, you could certainly do that as well, no matter where you are. So again, RadleyHaunt.com is where you can check that out, and we definitely want to entertain you this Halloween season, and we'll be sharing much, much more about that in the very near future. And that'll do it for your news from around the world this week. Here's a fun tip from Matthew in New York, who writes, when you are in Walt Disney World, ask the cast members driving buses, boats, or monorails for transportation cards. They contain a photo of the mode of transportation along with some fun facts about it. There are many of them to collect, and they are a great free souvenir. Well, Matthew, great tip. Free is definitely a wonderful word whenever you're on a Walt Disney World vacation to collect whatever you can, and those little transportation cards are certainly a fun souvenir to take home with you. Everybody else, email your tips into tips@InsideTheMagic.net.
What is that? Action!
Inside the Magic is proud to welcome you to the Great Movie Review.
This music should certainly clue you in as to what movie I'm going to be talking about now. It is none other than Guardians of the Galaxy, which has soared into theaters this weekend for Marvel, and Disney is doing tremendously well. About $94 million this opening weekend at about 4,000 theaters. The third biggest opening of this year and the biggest opening ever, I believe, for August. It's just behind Transformers Age of Extinction, which got $100 million, and Captain America the Winter Soldier at $95 million. So very, very close to all of those films, and there's a good reason for that, because Guardians of the Galaxy is tremendously fun. Now, I do, of course, want to say this is a spoiler-free review, so don't worry if you haven't seen it yet. But, this film is certainly out there in many ways. It's an odd assortment of actors and characters. It's out there, literally, in outer space. And it's based on, really obscure Marvel characters. And when it was first announced many months ago, everybody kind of went, huh? Guardians of the what? Who are these, what, Vin Diesel as a talking tree and a Bradley Cooper as a raccoon? What? But it totally makes sense. It works beautifully. It's funny. It's full of great action and suspense. It's adventurous. It's unpredictable for the most part. And it's really everything everyone wanted this movie to be, I think. I think everybody was doubtful of it at first, but now that it's been out there, it is just a whole lot of fun from beginning to end. I mean, the sequences that you think would be very serious and they're set up as very serious then suddenly turn a bit absurd and work on a humorous level, but still somehow retain that feeling of importance. And then there's the other way around where you think things are going really silly and all of a sudden they get very serious and very important as far as the plot and character development and everything that a good movie should have. It really works very well as far as, Chris Pratt does an amazing job as the lead of Star-Lord, Peter Quill. He's likable, he's hilarious, but he's also very genuine. There's definitely some heartfelt moments with him. And the way it all ties together with his character and even the awesome mixtape that they've been so widely publicizing, like the music you're hearing in the background, sort of this greatest hits of 70s music. What a bizarre mashup with that and this sci-fi world of talking creatures and multicolored races and outer space and all of that. It just somehow all blends together perfectly and comes off really, really well. A quite enjoyable experience all around. There's definitely surprises throughout the film, a lot of heart, as I said, and somehow it all comes together still feeling Marvel. I mean, it's not Iron Man, it's not Captain America, it's not even the Avengers, it's its own thing for sure. I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy stand out on their own, though by the end of the movie you could definitely see how they could fit in with the world of the Avengers, and they, I'm sure, will down the line, but for now, I can it sits on its own. You don't have to know a lot about the Marvel history. You certainly, I mean, if you did, that would be a problem, because, of course, everyone looked at Guardians of the Galaxy and said, who? So it's good that they managed to have sort of this almost standalone Marvel film that doesn't really relate that much to anything else that we've seen so far in the cinematic universe, except for a couple of little tie-ins here and there. I mean, naturally, there are the villains of this film. Lee Pace as Ronan, who is an interesting villain. I think he may be one of the weaker parts of the film. There are parts where Ronan comes off as this really amazing, menacing, crazy villain, and then there are kind of parts where you're just like, oh, it's just kind of this Weasley guy who talks a big game. And maybe that was the point. I mean, maybe that's kind of, who the character is supposed to be. And, of course, even above him is Thanos, who we saw a little teaser of at the end of The Avengers. And this is not a spoiler. I assume everybody has seen The Avengers by now. And, of course, he is widely known to be in Guardians of the Galaxy. Does not have a huge role. There's certainly more of Thanos to come down the line in the Marvel Universe. But we definitely get a taste of what he is in this film. And it's exciting. And it makes you want a bit more. Now, with all of the humor that's worked into this movie, it's actually not that kid-friendly. I mean, there's, a lot of the Marvel films you could easily show to younger kids, and while there are some slightly adult moments, jokes and this and that in the other films, kids could see it for the most part and not have a problem. This one, there's definitely some crassness to Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's part of the characters. It really works very well, but there's swearing, there's, gestures and adult innuendo, and a lot of it will go over the heads of kids, but some of it will hit them smack in the face, and maybe they'll ask you about it, and you won't want to explain. And so, I would definitely use caution if you're showing this to really young kids. I personally wouldn't have a problem with it, but everybody has their own sensibilities about this sort of thing. It's nothing too bad, just definitely worth noting there. But I think it adds the humor that you don't expect, that type of humor out of a Marvel film like this. I think it works really, really well for these characters. All of the cast of the Guardians are fantastic in their own way. Certainly Rocket Raccoon and Groot steal the show. By the end, you absolutely love these two characters, and as I said, Chris Pratt as Star-Lord is another great one. Gamora, a strong female character that doesn't follow the usual sort of female stereotypes, which is a wonderful thing. And then Drax is just a big teddy bear, I think. He's huge, and he does great in being his menacingly huge role, but he's got some of the best one-liners of the whole movie. It's just an interesting ensemble that works wonderfully together. And, I've seen it once. I would love to see this movie again. There was probably plenty that I didn't catch, a lot of nuances here and there, and I imagine for those who are familiar with the Guardians comics, there was probably even more in there that deserves to be caught and understood all the way until the very end of the credits, which is, of course, with any Marvel film, it is always a good idea to stay to the very, very end as to not miss anything. But I would say absolutely, whether you've been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe or not, go rush out and see Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the best film at the theater right now, and will be for quite a while. This is going to be a very, very successful film, despite all the naysayers for many months wondering, will Guardians be Marvel's undoing? Not even close. This is going to be a huge smash hit. Everybody seems to love it, and it is just a whole lot of fun. And actually, I want to share just a little bit more about Guardians of the Galaxy here, though not from me, but rather from some of the cast and the creators of Guardians of the Galaxy. In a recent press conference that was held in California, Jeremiah Dawes was there covering it for Inside the Magic, and it featured some of the actors from the film as well as the movie's director, all of whom you will hear from right now, starting with director James Gunn.
You know, for me, I think I would have had a harder time trying to fit into the regular, Marvel scheme of things, and this gave me a chance to take what I loved about Marvel movies and Marvel comics and create a whole new universe, which is really, what has been the most exciting thing for me, in my entire professional career. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with different planets in the solar system, and I used to create for every single planet a different alien race with a certain kind of pet and a certain kind of house and a certain kind of water system and everything. And I would draw all these pictures, and I had hundreds of these pictures and had them in a box. And really, to me, this is like going back to that childhood box and creating this, fun universe.
Chris, you've had your fair share of having to gain and lose weight for parts recently. Do you relate to your female colleagues and what they go through with media scrutiny?
Do you mean are you saying that I might be responsible for giving men body image issues? If that's what you're saying, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. In terms of the attitude, that was something that and kind of the whole process for me on this one was just trusting James, really, and taking big swings and sometimes falling flat on my face, and just the big challenge for me was just trying to ignore the embarrassment of being an actor. It's a pretty embarrassing thing to do. You got people pointing cameras at you and hundreds of people watching you as you're trying to be great, and often, almost every time, you're not. And then there's one moment where you are, and the editor will take through all the shit to find it and then put it in the movie. So the challenge is not finding the attitude. It's really just being open and willing to go for it and try different things and having a director that you can trust. And so the attitude is not something that I intended or created. It's something James intended and created by getting me to try different things. And so that's really what that was about.
Oh, well, wow. You created that attitude. That's you took it.
How did you do that?
It's a gift. No, I don't know. I'm going to get better at this. I've never done this that much. So acting is something I've learned how to do through trial and error, and I'm sure press conferences will think the same thing.
You're just so perfect in this role. I'm wondering, and also,
you're right.
Well, exactly. You're getting better at this already.
Yeah. Well, for me, when I started writing the script, there was a script before my script, and then it didn't 100%, speak to me. So I wanted to make some pretty major changes, and I rewrote the whole script. And the very first thing that I thought of was this idea of the Walkman and the cassette tape, which is really this character's connection to his home planet of Earth. And that was the emotional center of the film. If the MacGuffin of the film is this orb that everyone's chasing after, the emotional center is this Walkman. And so it was just a natural part of the screenwriting process. All those songs that you see in the movie, Hooked on a Feeling, Redbone, Come and Get Your Love, were all written into the film. They're all part of the screenplay. So they were there from the ground floor up.
Gamora and Neytiri are both badasses, but other than that, they're practically opposites. Can you compare and contrast the two and your approach to them?
I feel they're very different. Neytiri grew up in a household where she was loved and she was held as a child. Gamora was taken, sort of like the Lost Boys of the Sudan. She was taken from her village, from her planet, and forced into a life of violence and crime. So there's this pain that follows her wherever she goes, but there's this last hope that she has that she can possibly get away. So I did try to find some similarities between them, but I don't think they would play together in a playground. They Mora's a hustler. Neytiri doesn't even know how to lie.
Yeah, I'm new to Marvel. I guess this whole thing started for me with a kind of a social media wave that was adamant about me doing something with Marvel. And there wasn't really a 6-month window to do a character at Marvel. So when Kevin Feige called me and said that him and James were talking about me playing a role, I had no idea what a role it would be. And they sent over a book of conceptual art. And I went into my living room with my kids, and I opened up the book, and I asked the kids what character they thought they wanted Daddy to play. And they all pointed at the tree. And I knew that was a good sign. Something very beautiful happened in playing this role. Something that, as an actor, I never would have imagined. And that is when my kids see trees, they refer to the trees as my brothers and sisters. And so they'll say, "Look, Daddy, it's your brother and sisters." And the idea to be associated with trees like that is remarkable. It's so much more gratifying than you would ever imagine.
You can read Jeremiah's thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy over on InsideTheMagic.net, and I hope that these characters and these environments and all that work their way into the theme parks, much as other Marvel films have at Interventions out at Disneyland, because I have a feeling everybody would really like to meet the Guardians of the Galaxy there. Nothing announced, of course, just yet. For now, there's just a 3D preview in the parks, but it's certainly one of those things that we would love to see make it there. But anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy is in theaters now. Go see it.
Come on and find it.
Now I want to jump back to San Diego Comic-Con for a bit more fun. Before we get into what is obviously Star Wars related here, judging by this music, I do want to mention real quick that I put up a fun video of me doing the Assassin's Creed experience, this Ninja Warrior style obstacle course outside the convention center. So if you want to see me stumble my way through that based on the Ubisoft video game, definitely head over to to OutsideTheMagic.com, as well as check the YouTube channel to see all of that in action. So the reason I'm playing some Star Wars music here, and this particular music may seem both familiar and unfamiliar to you at the same time. It's a kind of a mixture of the two. It is the theme song to Star Wars Rebels, the upcoming Disney XD animated show from Dave Filoni and gang. And I had a chance to sit down with Dave Filoni as well as the cast of Star Wars Rebels, the voice cast, to talk to them about what everybody can expect from this show when it debuts in October, a couple of months from now. And so I want to share my conversations with them with you right now, starting with Freddie Prinze Jr., who is going to be playing the Jedi Kanan in Star Wars Rebels. Certainly a big Star Wars fan himself. He talked about what it's like to enter that universe.
I grew up watching old samurai movies and old westerns with my grandfather. His name was Benito, and he called them oat burners, and thought it was the coolest thing. He loved America. He wasn't from here. He just thought it was the coolest place because they just did everything that everyone else wasn't allowed to do. So we would watch the western, and then we would watch these great samurai movies. And these guys would come up to the samurai. They would, like a peasant would say, how are you so great? How are you so powerful? And the samurai would say, well, I do this and I do that. And there were all these selfless acts, and I garden and I do all these things and I accomplish it before I have my first meal. And the peasant says, well, how can you live this way and be satisfied? And the samurai looks at him and he says, how can you not? And to me, that's a Jedi. A Jedi is almost ostracized from the normal folk because they're so special. It's like the smart kid in class. The alpha males in high school don't contribute to society. They're the labor force. It's the guys you made fun of and ridiculed that are responsible for every major step forward the world has ever made. So that to me is who the Jedi are. Because they're so different, and they're more disciplined than you can be, than I can be, than you can be. That the insecurity in the normal people sort of look at them and they're uncomfortable. That's somebody they deem better than them. And it's sort of why, Palpatine wants to take control in the first place. You know what I mean? They are a legitimate threat. They think for themselves. They're not sheep. You know what I mean? They're samurai, and Sith are ninjas. So when I grew, they are. I mean, watch Clone Wars. Watch Darth Maul versus Pre Vizsla, right? And you'll see technology versus Sith ninja skills. And you'll see technology win, and then you'll see the ninja recognize what's beating him. He takes out that part of the technology, and then you see ninja skills dominate technology and literally eliminate him until he cuts off his friggin' head. You have to see the director's cut to see the head go off, but everybody knew what happened. But that's the stories they're telling. Like, people are like, oh, it's a sick lightsaber scene. If that's what you say, you're not watching the story. You're just into CGI, and you buy every video game in the world because it's got a cool trailer. You know what I mean? Like, you're not watching gameplay, you're not appreciating it. You just go, oh, that's sick. But think about that. I'll say a word that you're not allowed to say. That's a cartoon. And that lightsaber fight holds up to any live action lightsaber fight you've ever seen in the movies. And I challenge you to argue that. It literally holds up. It tells a story and gives you every moment of action that you want. It's just awesome, and people need to know that. If you haven't watched Clone Wars, watch it. And then imagine, what they're going to be able to do now, man. You know what I mean? So I feel like a part of me has trained my whole life for this, to answer your first question. You know what I mean? I read the scripts and I get goosebumps, and you dream about saying those lines, you pretend to say those lines with your friends. I didn't play Cowboys and Indians. I played Jedi and Sith, you know what I mean? Or, well, we just called them Vader and Luke back then. No one was going to be anybody but those two guys. I was Luke, he was Vader, even though I always liked bad guys. But, because they got to do whatever they wanted. But, and my daughter does too. She was watching the Disney parade, and Darth Vader was walking down the Disney parade, which was very surreal for me to experience, by the way. You have to accept it, but it took me a moment. But I have Disney, don't fight. Anyway, she goes, Dada, who's that? And I said, that's Darth Vader. She said, is that a bad guy? I said, yes. She goes, can he do whatever he wants, Dada? And I literally had that father moment where I'm like, oh my God, that's me. I always liked the bad guys in wrestling because they only lost on the pay-per-views. We didn't have money, so I watched the regular ones, and the good guys always lost. If you want to see your good guy win, you had to pay Vince McMahon money to see it. So I always like bad guys. I said, finally I came up with a quick answer. I said, no, he answers to the Emperor. And she said, who's the Emperor? I said, I am, don't worry about it. And that was it. So I got to be a bad guy, and she still knows there's rules. But, yeah.
Bringing your own Star Wars fanness into Rebels, how do you feel like it fits into the Star Wars universe? I mean, is it right there in with all the greats? Do you really feel like you are part of that same universe? Okay, yeah, definitely. They do something really crazy with this show. Dave would be better equipped to tell us, so if you get a chance to ask him. They have a program in the computer, basically, and I'm not a computer guy, so this is all layman speak for me, but it'll make somewhat sense. There's not a shot, a lens, or an angle in Rebels that's not from the original trilogy. The entire world we live in, all the shots, the lenses, everything you see is from the original. So it gives you this feeling as you're, watching animation and looping lines of, oh my God, I saw that walker in Return of the Jedi, and the reveal is, you're in this world. These guys know what people wanted, you know what I mean? So they're making sure they find that next generation of Star Wars fans, but they give the parents of them something to watch that they can literally directly connect to, because that's your contact point, right? The original trilogy, we're all of that age. So they want to give your brain these little subliminal messages of seeing shots you've seen with music cues you've heard, and you're in it and you're there. So it's so yeah, I would say I feel like I'm in that world. I mean, we do the show in order. I mean, it's like The Breakfast Club. They shot that movie sequentially. That's why, except the beginning and end. They shot those on opposite days. But they literally shot the movie in order, and you get a very organic, smooth experience because
most of the time you do a scene and you and me are fighting, and then we do another scene like 3 weeks later, and the way we perform it now, the shouting scene doesn't make sense anymore. You know what I mean? And people are like, man, why is he so angry? 'Cause that's what the note that you got when you were there in the moment. When it's all in order, you kind of, you know where you need to be. You know where the high points are, you know where the low points are, and we get the opportunity to do that. Not everyone does. So.
Next up, I spoke with two more of the voice actors who are portraying other lead characters in Star Wars Rebels. The character of Ezra is voiced by Taylor Gray, and Sabine, voiced by Tia Sarkar. And here's what they had to say about the show.
Ezra is a young kid who has this innate ability that he stumbles upon, and it's because he's force sensitive. That's what we call him in the Star Wars world. And he's very cool. He does everything on his own. I feel like he embodies the word rebel through and through. He's exactly, if you picture a rebel, he's exactly what you would picture. And what I identify with that is, I think his confidence and his like individuality is the gait that he walks with, whatever he's carrying with him. I really connect with that, and I think everyone is so closely like their character. And I think they did a great job casting.
Good casting,
it's
yeah.
a testament to them. But his whole thing of like, I don't need a whole bunch of other people around me. I can do this on my own. That's like as I say that, it sounds terrible, but I can identify with that. And he's very, very cool, and it's a cool character to portray.
Sabine is a Mandalorian, so of course I feel like very connected to that. No, I'm kidding. She's awesome, I think. So I would love to think that I have a lot in common with her. She's amazing. She's like this, Ezra and Sabine are the youngest ones, the youngest members of the crew. Ezra's a little bit younger than Sabine.
Yeah.
But Sabine is like this she's smart, which I love, a smart female character. She's strong-willed. She's Mandalorian, but she's also an artist. She's a graffiti artist, so that kind of makes her special, I think. And I think the graffiti art, I think, is really fitting because, we're rebels. We're like nonconformists. We're, anti-establishment. So what's more anti-establishment than like tagging things with graffiti? So I think that's great. But I'd like to think, she's got like some attitude and some like a spunky personality, so I'd like to think that we have that in common.
And she went to the University of Texas.
Yeah, she's a Longhorn. No, I'm kidding. That's me. Get it. Previous conversation.
Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka Tano, very popular character, obviously. How do you feel sort of following that up as Sabine?
Well, I mean, she's like this iconic character. She's amazing. I think Princess Leia obviously is like the first female icon within the Star Wars universe, and then Ahsoka is like just as amazing of a character. So it's a little intimidating entering this whole Star Wars universe, but I think that Hera and Sabine are such interesting characters. They're different from each other, but they're both smart, strong females that are right there beside the dudes, attacking the Empire, beating people up, blowing things up. So I think they're both kind of like inspiration. So hopefully people will respond to these two ladies like they have with Ahsoka Tano.
I'm sure they will.
Now, the mastermind behind the Clone Wars, very popular show that has come to an end, and now the upcoming Star Wars Rebels is none other than Dave Filoni. Had a chance to talk to him as well about how Rebels is going to kind of sit with the Clone Wars fans. Does it already have a following as a result of the Clone Wars, or, where it's going to go and who it is aimed at?
Clone Wars, big following, obviously. Animated show, a lot of younger audience. This now moves to Disney. What is your target audience for this? Do you think it reaches all ages, Star Wars fans, young and old?
I hope so. I mean, I had the same kind of target audience I did when I did Clone Wars, which is I always described as like 6 to 46 and beyond. The best compliment we ever got on Clone Wars was parents coming up and telling me that it was something that they could watch with their kids. I really loved that. I felt that, to be honest, as we did Clone Wars, it got so dark that we alienated a good part of the younger viewers, which, I think works counter to your purpose on a show like Star Wars. When fans ask me, are you making it for kids, I just kind of chuckle and say, well, yeah, of course. And then they're like, why? And I'm like, well, how old were you when you saw Star Wars for the first time? They're like, oh, I was 6 years old, and I was at the Cornet Theater. And I'm like, exactly. So the trick of Star Wars isn't that you're ever making it younger or you would never dare dumb it down. It's just you make a story that relates to people and everyone across a large spectrum. And if your characters are good, I think that will succeed. If not, you would never want to simplify things or make it silly. And I want this to be visually stylized and not photorealistic, but that doesn't mean at all that it's a simpler story or that where we've dumbed things down. Tension is a huge part of Star Wars and making it work. You need people to be on the edge of their seat, and you have to believe, just like I felt strongly in Clone Wars, that not all these characters will survive this. One of my favorite animated TV shows was Robotech, and when the character Roy Fokker got whacked, I just could not believe it. Changed the entire way I looked at animation and television. I mean, I was just like, wow, that just took the stakes up for all these other characters. So, I think that you felt that as a kid when you saw Obi-Wan in the original A New Hope, and so that sensibility is always there. But something else that goes with that is if you do that and you have these serious storylines, you have to have fun, and things have to be funny, and you need that dialogue. Get this walking carpet out of my way. I mean, you need that stuff to make this all work. An interesting detail that we studied as far as technical stuff, like how do we make new lightsabers, something we did that's more old-fashioned is Joel Aaron, my CG supervisor, I had him go and get all the recorded data on the lens sets they used to film A New Hope. So when you're filming in the Ghost, we shoot with the same lens that they shot in the Falcon. So you're using a 50 or you're using a 75 here. And we know exactly what they are for those and the special effects shots. So Rebels doesn't have all the crazy flying camera work that Clone Wars did, which is based more on a prequel era digital camera. We've taken this back and we're shooting with more of a, older type of camera, and Joel has created a film grain that is the final step that we actually put in front of everything we do in Rebels. So it knocks a bit of the crispness off of the picture to make it look a little bit more like the classic series, because that's what we're moving into. So those little considerations are all things that we've been doing to try to make it, feel like that used universe.
When the Clone Wars was announced to be ending, I think a million voices cried out.
If the ratings are that big, it would be awesome.
Well, so then Rebels comes along. Do you feel like it is filling every one of those fans' expectations?
No, you can't do that. I mean, I'm just very honest about it. The Clone Wars had an interesting relationship with the fans, and I knew we would. I mean, just introducing a Padawan to Anakin Skywalker was like the first. I never thought of that moment from fans, and then the Mandalorians are now pacifists, and so it was a tumultuous relationship. But I think that, what I loved about Clone Wars was we had to earn it. We had to earn the fans' respect. There was an often idea, I think, that just because we put the name Star Wars on this, that it was going to be successful, and I said no. That's just not going to be how it is. These characters, and I told Ashley with Ahsoka, you're going to have to earn all their respect, and your character is right on that edge of being likable or annoying. It's just a fact. It's new for everybody. Plus, there's the blunt fact that we gave Anakin Skywalker a young girl to be his understudy. And that, at the time, could be a challenging thing for fans. But, you see it now with women fans as they're being recognized. I want to even say grow. My wife was always a fan of things when she was a kid. They just were largely ignored as a group. And so it was important to make a character like Ahsoka, to put her boldly out there with, guys to see, and say she can stand on her own between these two guys who you think are like legends in the Star Wars universe. What's beautiful was by the end of it, people that I know had been like, why is she doing this nicknamey stuff, and why is she this in the beginning when she was a kid? When she matured and she walked away, they were sad to see her go. And now the number one question I get asked on Rebels is she going to come back? That's when I know that character's been successful. And so when we're creating Sabine and Hera, I feel the same way. It's like you have a hotshot pilot, Han Solo. Okay, now I have a hotshot pilot named Hera, and I don't apply any of the things to her. She's not sassy. She's not spunky. She's not any of those things. She's just a badass. She's tough. She's determined. She's all those things that you would say, let's apply that to Han Solo as a character. And that's Hera. And yet she also has a side where she can be comforting to these characters because she feels responsibility to them. So she has a maturity as a character that Han didn't have, being more brash, And Sabine was definitely a character attempt to say, we're doing all these things that are like the 1970s and Star Wars I loved, but what about kids today? Well, they have more dyed hair, they have more punk look, they tag. So you have to bring in relevant things to kids today, and it's been the most shocking thing is how she's almost the biggest reaction character because she's different. And much as people say, I want Star Wars that I grew up with, she's proof that they want something new too. Because otherwise the story's not moving forward and you're just recreating. So I think she's an exciting, dynamic character now that people wonder, well, what's she about? Why does she do this graffiti tagging? And, I think that's when we're doing good with Star Wars. And Tia's doing a great job of bringing her to life.
And finally, I sat down with the remaining two of the lead characters and actors for Star Wars Rebels. It is Vanessa Marshall as Hera Syndulla, as well as Steve Blum voicing Zeb, who is an original, a new kind of creature for the Star Wars universe for Star Wars Rebels.
I play Erwin on The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Yes, he's a little boy, and so I based him on an ex-boyfriend. He played a lot of video games, and he's like, hello. So Erwin says, what's up, yo? So I had to go, every time before I would say a line, I would say, hello. And then I would go, what's up, yo? This character literally comes from such a very sacred personal place in my heart that rather than working from the outside in, with this show in particular, we've all worked from the inside out. These voices are very organic, they're very true, they're raw, they're honest. And so the preparation is really to just relax and trust that and let us speak from our hearts. And I think it lends a kind of integrity and vulnerability that makes us more likable. And you feel that and can hear it in the way people think.
Mine is just my morning voice. It's like Brenda Vaccaro with a really bad accent. No, we played with it a little bit. We on the little breakdowns, especially in the callbacks, they said they wanted something maybe British, maybe I think there's a list of 5 different possible accents that we could try, and I just sort of squished them all together into this amalgamation of different accents, and partially because I can't do a really great British accent, so it ended up starting as a heavy cockney like that, but it was unintelligible, so spread it out a little bit, softened it up, and put in a little bit of Australian, a little Kiwi, a little bit of Northern England, a little bit of London, and just came up with something that to me sounds like a bad British accent, but it works. It seems to work perfectly for. So. Oh yeah, well it's basically just this, but him bashing bucketheads who take stormtroopers by the heads and smash them together like that, but he's very loving at the same time. He's got the highs, he's got the lows. He can scream when he needs to. He's just fun. He's a very, very broad character, probably the most broad of anybody on the show, and he's like this big simian goofball, and he's a child. He's a very powerful martial artsy child, basically.
How do you feel about? Obviously, we're at Comic-Con. Star Wars fans everywhere. I know you're out at Star Wars weekends,
Yes.
meeting the fans. How do you feel being part of that Star Wars universe?
Well, previous to this, it's been very sacred and personal. I'm a writer, and I love Joseph Campbell, and I've studied all of that, and I see all those elements in Star Wars. They move me deeply. And once getting this part, getting on Twitter, my whole life has changed. I have friends all over the world, and I literally feel like I've had a coming out party. And people understand me, and I'm finally at home. Now, how I did not avail myself to this in the past, I have no idea. But it's a whole new world. And people, I see them, I feel like I've known them my whole life. My life has changed completely. It's been epic. So what was once personal is now completely public and lovely. Yeah.
That surprised me about you. I think I met you on Billy and Mandy.
Yeah.
And we've been working together on so many shows throughout the years, and I just figure that she does the con circuits like a lot of us do.
Well, I'm a nerd. Yeah, but comic books, you read them by yourself. You don't...
I mean, conventions with the fans and getting yourself out there with the fans, and you really hadn't done much of that before this, right?
Well, not the ones that you do. This is my 9th Comic-Con here in to San Diego, but I haven't traveled. Like, there are certain voice actors who like do world tours of conventions. I have no idea what that's about. I'm about to get into it because it's awesome. I had no idea. But yeah, so I'm not really familiar with it. But as a geek, I've collected things by myself on the floor, you know, looking at things. So it's very different.
Okay. Yeah, but I've been doing the con circuit for probably 10 years, and I've been doing animation for 20 years. And going to something like Star Wars Weekend, it takes it to a whole different level. The fandom is just at a whole other level. I started out in anime, and that's a pretty dedicated fan base. And this has that same obsession kind of quality to it. Where I think the thing that really struck me the most in Orlando was seeing these families where you see little kids 2 years old and then grandma 90 years old in a wheelchair, and they're all wearing Star Wars t-shirts matching, and they're cheering and chanting our names as we're riding by in these cars, waving with our names on it for Star Wars. And the show hasn't even come out yet. I have never experienced anything like that before in my life.
It's also, there's no room for megalomania. It's not like we're up there going like, yeah, hey, how you doing? We're a part of something that's not even about us. And we're paying homage to it. And so there's no, that's what's really cool about it, is none of us are going to get fat heads about this, because it's not about us. It's about Leia putting that information into R2-D2 ultimately. That's what's important, not us. We're just, you know, but we all love it equally, the fans and the actors. So that's what's really cool about it. Whereas in on-camera things, you know, those actors are sort of on high and untouchable. You can talk to me on Twitter anytime you like. Just DM me. I'll probably follow you back. It's awesome.
I can't tell you how many times I wanted to jump out of the car in the motorcade.
Oh, and just like
hug people.
I know.
We're doing it. Oh my God, it's like A New Hope again.
Yeah, I know.
It's 1977. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're all fans. We're all.
Everyone's so jolly about it.
Yeah.
And Star Wars fans are not bizarre people. They're like, aren't you concerned? Like, no, dude, no. You're either Sith or, you know, it's fine. We'll work it out. It's just not a big deal. So I love that. I feel very safe being so public. I've chosen voiceover specifically because I don't want to be on camera. I prefer the invisibility of voiceover. So this kind of visibility is actually suited for me because it's not about me. So it's kind of cool.
We tease her about being a little too familiar sometimes, though, and allowing the fans in a little bit too deep because they might end up sleeping in your house.
Come on. Probably not. I met a guy with a Millennium Falcon in his garage, and I literally tweeted and I said, "Where have you been my whole life?" Maybe that was a mistake. I don't know.
We'll see.
Well, yeah.
Big brother will protect you. Don't worry.
Yeah, all right.
I got your back.
Thanks very much to everybody who sat down and chatted from Star Wars Rebels. That will debut on Disney XD in October. Now moving on from there to another already popular Disney show on ABC. It is Once Upon a Time. And at San Diego Comic-Con last week, I also had a chance to sit down with the cast and creators of that show. And I want to share their thoughts with you right now on, everybody, of course, wants to know what's going to happen next. What's going to be next in the next season? And that's not the type of question that they can answer. However, they can and did share their thoughts on the introduction of Frozen to the universe of Once Upon a Time. Of course, that's what everybody wants to know right now. Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, Hans, they're all coming to the show. And what exactly does that mean? And where did that idea come from? So, in order here, you are going to hear from Jennifer Morrison, who plays Emma, Colin O'Donoghue, who plays Hook, Lana Parrilla, who plays the evil queen / Regina, Jared Gilmore plays Henry Mills, Robert Carlyle, who plays Rumpelstiltskin, and Emily DeRaven, who plays Belle, as well as Edward Kitsis and Adam Horowitz, who are the executive producers for the show. I had talked to them a while back about Tron Uprising, which of course I was a much bigger fan of than Once Upon a Time, but it was good to sit down with them and see them again once again at Comic-Con to talk about Frozen coming to Once Upon a Time.
When Frozen was announced to come to the show, there was obviously a frenzy across.
Yes.
Frozen is a phenomenon. How has that sort of made you feel on set? Is there a different feel knowing that you're a part of that phenomenon?
I think the guys have been fantastic. They've slotted the characters in seamlessly.
Yeah, it feels like they've always been a part of our world, even in a very short period of time, which is a real credit to what Eddie and Adam have done storytelling-wise. But
it's just also been fun to have a fresh story that's being infiltrated into what's going on. I think that it was a really brave move on Eddie and Adam's part going into season 4 instead of relying on what we've been doing and doing another variation on that. They've definitely taken a risk by opening up the world this way and taking on characters that are so new and are still so fresh in the Disney realm, and so it's brought a real fresh energy to things, and we've enjoyed Georgina and Elizabeth, and they're lovely actresses, and they fit right in with everybody, and
they also are uncannily like the characters.
Every time I look at them, I'm like, they look just like the animated characters. It's totally freaking me out in a good way, but freaking me out.
They're both so pixely looking.
Yeah. The part of what's been fun for us with the Frozen characters in general has been how many, I guess, metaphors cross over between what's going on in their storylines and what applies to what's been going on in all of our storylines for the last 3 years. And so you definitely see a similarity between Elsa and Emma in that sense. And I've been enjoying it because as I'm reading more scripts, I've been really touched by the fact that Emma finally has someone who understands her that isn't family. This is her first friend, you know, so this is the first time someone actually connects with her and understands her in a way that...
What's a friend?
Well, he's a special friend.
He's a special friend. But they're friends.
Yes, it's true. Okay, all right, well, there's that, but, you know...
Well, there's that.
But you know what I'm saying? It is a nice thing. It's been a really nice extra layer to the storytelling.
I don't know. It's a complicated relationship. It's not going to be easy. But I mean, I think that because they have a connection that's. I do think that Emma and Hook have a really deep connection that I don't think either of them fully understand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or can explain. So we'll see. But at the end of the day, Hook is still. I mean, he's a pirate, and he spent hundreds and hundreds of years being a pirate. So there's always that.
There are some similarities, not only with Elsa and Regina, but I think Elsa and Emma as well. You know, Elsa can't really control her magic yet. And Regina can to some degree, but she's still a very temperamental woman. And she's very impulsive and reactive. So there's that similarity, but she knows how to control her magic. But their stories, you'll see, there's some sort of parallel. Come on. Why does everyone want to know that? Like,
because we love it.
Yeah, but don't you want to be surprised?
We'll still be surprised. The execution is still going to be amazing.
That's
we'll be
true.
Surprised,
Everybody wants to know if Elsa is going to be good, bad, somewhere in between. You know, it's a big mystery.
You know Elsa better than I do. I haven't worked with her yet.
I think it'll be interesting to see if Henry gets any interaction with the Frozen people. I think it'll be really cool if he does, because I love Frozen. I've seen the movie a lot. I have a twin sister, so...
That's it.
So how does that feel for you? I mean, you've obviously seen the movie 100,000 times in your house.
Yeah.
You let it go over and over and all of that. Is it great to have that?
I think it's amazing. It's awesome for me to have something I'm so familiar with come on the show, and I love the movie. I saw it, as you know, a lot. So, and I think it's an honor that Disney let us do this thing with Frozen, and it really just came out. So
we're at episode 3, you know what I mean, and really Elsa and Anna just been introduced into the whole world now. So you kind of, it's what you know of them at the beginning. But as always with the show with Adam and Eddie, they're going to take these characters off somewhere else. I mean, we know that. We don't know what that's going to be as yet. But I think there is some parallels to be drawn, and I think that perhaps that might play out between these two characters as well. There could be an idea of maybe you're better off without me, you know what I mean, and maybe, you know, I'm better off without you, whatever it is. We shall soon see.
Last time I talked to you guys, it was a couple years ago about Tron Uprising here.
Yes.
Big change, talking about Once Upon a Time, huge hit obviously, and now adding Frozen to that mix, an even bigger phenomenon. Can you tell me about sort of working with that such amazingly huge property?
Well, you know, it is. We were very inspired by the movie, and the staff all got together, and we just started to be like, wow, you know, thematically it's so like our show, and wouldn't it be cool if this happened and that happened? And once we said enough of wouldn't it be cool, we said, well, what if we did it?
And we called Disney, and we were lucky enough that they said okay.
And then we were terrified because we had understood that the very next thing, once that was released to the public, was a bunch of people saying they better not screw it up. And so every night we go to bed wondering, did we screw it up?
And we're doing our best, and
but,
you'll see soon enough.
Yeah, but for us, what we weighed was, 10 years from now, do we want to look back and say we didn't do something because we were frightened? We love Frozen. We think it fits thematically so well, and we're not trying to do the sequel. We're bringing Anna and Elsa into our world, and we're having fun with that, but that doesn't take away from Frozen or what will come, if anything comes in the future with that franchise.
You have so many great female characters on the show. I mean, there's more, I feel, than any others on TV right now. Was there a conscious decision that said we want, the women to really take the reins?
It's funny. It's
from the moment in the pilot.
Yeah, it's funny. We didn't set out to write a show just about strong females, but it's just what happened. And it was interesting. It was like when we were writing the pilot, we really kept holding every character up to the litmus test of, for me, like, what would I want my daughters to see, and and making them strong, making them empowered, making Snow White, when we meet her, pull a sword and defend Prince Charming, and not the other way around.
We said right from the beginning, these are not damsels in distress; they save themselves. And that was the theme we did. And when we saw Anna and Elsa, we're like, here are two princesses, or a queen and a princess who saved themselves.
It was one of my favorite lines that we did in the finale this past year. Was Emma says that when Hook comes to her when she's breaking out of the prison, and she says, "I'm the only one who saves me is me." And that's the idea that we love on this show and what we want to do with our women.
Because Elsa reminded us of Emma and Regina. And, Anna reminded us of Snow White. And we really just thought they'd fit well in the universe.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And that brings us to the end of show 487 and also to the end of Comic-Con coverage for this year, at least here on the podcast. Still have a few more things to post over on InsideTheMagic.net as well as OutsideTheMagic.com. So if you want even more fun from that massive convention, stay tuned for that online. I've got at least 3 or 4 more videos to put up, including my adventure this year through The Walking Dead Escape. A little bit different than in past years. It took a different approach this year, but still fun nonetheless. You can check for that very soon, as well as some other smaller experiences, as well as a fun show from throughout that convention. And then moving on from there, as I said earlier, just a few days from now, I'm flying out to California once again for Disneyland for a couple of days. Going to be taking part in the Friends of the Magic gathering hosted by Paul Berry from Window to the Magic on Friday at 10 a.m. I'm going to be hosting a meet at Disneyland. Definitely stay tuned to social media on Twitter and Facebook for all the details about that, where you can come ride a couple of things at Disneyland, take some photos, should be pretty fun, then stick around for a while if you want to just kind of hang out and enjoy Disneyland for a while. And then over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be at the Scare LA convention in downtown Los Angeles, largely covering it for OutsideTheMagic.com, but there will definitely be some bits and pieces over on Inside the Magic as well, because Universal Hollywood is going to be there with some Halloween Horror Nights announcements. A Knott's Berry Farm / Knott's Scary Farm will be there, and some other theme parky Halloween stuff, and then everything else other than that will be, as I said, over on Outside the Magic. Much more to come from that. Should be a whole lot of fun over that weekend. So I may or may not put up a podcast over the weekend next weekend. Might be delayed by another day or two, but you're used to that by now. So there it is for this week. Of course, I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. And of course, visit us over at InsideTheMagic.net between episodes of this show to stay on top of everything. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube to really see all of that fun up to the minute. So thanks to all of you for listening each and every week, and have a magical week. Bye.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, just a dream away.